Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Football Fan Show. I'm joined as always by Carlos. Thank you so much for joining. And we're joined by a friend of the show, a guy who's been there from the start, Mr. Vartan. Welcome. Thank you for joining as always. And it's always a pleasure to have you. Always been amazing having you on the show.
Love being here.
And it's the best show for you to come back to, really.
Is it?
Fulham Football Club.
Yes.
Oh dear, Fulham Football Club. So, thank you, anybody who's watching. So, what we're going to be talking about today is Fulham and where they are, and what's going on, and really, has the Premiership been a step too far? So, that's what we need to get into. So, let's get straight into it, shall we? So, just for context for everybody. So, Fulham at the bottom of the table. They've, like Sheffield United, lost 4 and drawn 1, and the draw was against each other. So that's not a great situation. The only difference is 3 points on the goal difference. So that's not a great situation to be in. So it's not a great start for Fulham to their return to the Premiership. It is 6 games in. It's a 38-game campaign. So there's still plenty of time to get back into it. So that's the reality of the situation. But I think we should first talk about the game that happened between Fulham and Crystal Palace. So let's go to you first on it, Vartan. What's your thoughts on the game that you saw?
I end up saying the same thing pretty much every game. I think there's been a gradual improvement in our last 3 games. Since the Wolves game, things looked up. I mean, we had these new faces come in around then. Lookman, you could tell, was going to be something, I'd say special. I mean, special in that company. And he has proven to be so. He scored a fantastic goal against Sheffield United. And I think he played well again yesterday. Listen, we hit the woodwork a couple of times. Now, I'm not going to make excuses about why we failed yet again. We have the lion's share of possession. That means absolutely zilch, because in the last third, poor man Mitrovic is like running in treacle most of the time, with no support. The ball doesn't stick to him. He's not getting any crosses in. There's a multitude of reasons, apart from the mental issues I'm sure they're all suffering with. But there are reasons that, for instance, Parker, who I think should be playing Joe Bryan, his partnership with Mitrovic, just on crosses and assists last year, for instance, is something that you should nurture, not cast aside for one of the newer players, who hasn't exactly proven himself to be any different. So there are a number of reasons, but there's no real excuses. We are not good enough at the moment. I think we'll get a little better, but already we have to win 10 of those remaining 30-odd games. That's a third of the games. And I'll come back to some other bits after I've let Paul Carlos have a word or two as well about why he thinks this could be.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts, Carlos?
Well, the game was a repeat of what we've been seeing. Fulham don't look that bad on the ball. We're not great because we don't have any depth. Even though we have a lot of possession, we don't create much. And it just seems very easy to score against us. Teams don't have to stretch themselves to create chances and to score. Also, in practically every match, we've gone a goal down before the 10th minute.
Yeah.
In the first attack of the opposition, they score. And then that just conditions the whole game, because obviously when you're at the bottom of the table, pressure gets to you and you become anxious. You try to speed things up. You start making more mistakes. And then when you settle down and you start getting back into your rhythm, you concede another one. And that's what's been happening to us in every match. Now, I think there are footballing reasons for this, from the manager down to the players, but there are also institutional and executive reasons, which at the end of the day, I think are more important.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. But I thought, to be honest, let's look at the game bit by bit. So, as you said, early goal. That situation, First goal was ridiculous. And what's going on with the defense? Because obviously we know what happened. The ball was with Wilfred Zaha. It's just a little fake pass, and then this guy scored right there, Mr. Rewald. But he had a free shot. That's what frustrated me from what I saw. It wasn't like there was the press. There wasn't the urgency. It's almost like people stopped to watch the spectacle. And then he obviously scored. Obviously, it was difficult for the goalkeeper to get anywhere. Why is that? Why is there not that urgency and that just go for it attitude, Vartan?
I don't think it's a lack of application by the players. If you're not good enough for that division, you're not good enough. It doesn't mean you're not trying or working hard enough. They've been put in that position. I mean, everyone has a dream of playing in the Premier League. The problem is we still, well, until the new players came in, we were suffering and struggling with the Championship defence, which wasn't actually even really good enough for the Championship. And then we've promoted them to the Premier League and asking them to defend against, let's face it, as I've said before, every team has one or two players that can damage you. We appear to be the only one that doesn't. I'm being facetious. That's not really true, is it? We've got players that can do damage. But, you know, like I said, yesterday we hit the post a couple of times. If our luck was a little better, you're looking at a draw, if not even a win. But that's not to say it was a close game or, you know, that we at any point looked as though we're in control, because even though we have the possession, we, as Carlos said, we are tense about every attack that is launched against us. I'm hoping that the new players settle in a bit more quickly. But we've had a little batch of what I would call point-gaining games after the Arsenal start. And we gained 1 point. And even though it's obviously not too late yet, it won't be long before it is, because I look and I'm not sure where we're going to get the points from. I see, you know, you look at the bottom of the table, you think, okay, who can we draw into this? And apart from Sheffield United, Burnley and West Brom, and I'm not even sure about Burnley, but apart from that, those three and us, it doesn't look like a very weak middle tier, if you know what I mean. I don't think Brighton would get drawn into it. I'm not sure Newcastle would. You know, who I'm looking around, I'm thinking this is a four horse race already.
Yeah, it is difficult to see, like you said, anyone else really drawn into. I mean, even going back to the game, I mean, you just can just feel the luck is not on your side. The red card I thought was a bit harsh, don't you think, Carlos? And even a lovely goal by Kearney, by the way, I must say that. But yeah, I thought definitely the referee just I appreciate he's got to make his own, you know, detailed analysis of what happened, but I didn't see any malice in that at all.
Well, I thought it was a red card. There doesn't have to be malice for the challenge to be dangerous, and I thought it was dangerous. So I wouldn't argue with that decision. I mean, it doesn't make any difference at the end of the day. We could be playing with 15 players and we'd still lose. What I would say, Vartan was talking about our defense, and he's absolutely right. We started playing with the same Championship defense that we had last year, and obviously it wasn't good enough. So the genius we have in the position of director of football decided that we should bring in some new players in defense. And guess what? We had a defense that had no Premier League experience. We started yesterday with Aina, who had the best experience of the lot because he's played Serie A with Torino. But then we had Adarabioyo, who had not played a single minute in the Premier League until he joined us. He was a Manchester City player, was loaned out to West Brom and Blackburn in the Championship. And then we have a perfectly good left back, who's Joe Bryan. And he decided to sign another left back. Why not? Let's overload the left back position. And he signs Anthony Robinson, who's good. He's a good player. I think he's a good player. But he was playing for Wigan.
Mm.
So when you think about it, of the back four, none of them, well, Tim Ream, obviously, I think because of his age and perhaps limited ability, is also struggling a bit. He did very well for us before, but this is a bit too much. Also, you've got to consider that when he's surrounded by players that are inadequate, he's going to look worse as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all making each other worse.
Mm.
And this is the doing of, as I said, the brilliance of the man who's planning our football future, and who has no experience in that job. As far as I know, his footballing pedigree is 0.
Mm. Yeah, and it's difficult in that situation, isn't it, Vartan? Because obviously he is, I think he's the son, isn't he, of the owner. So he's in a very privileged position, and we've seen that throughout. To be honest, seen at Arsenal, seen at various places where the owner gets their son or their daughter to get involved in the football business when they've got no football experience, and that's what you need. You need that director of football. Luckily, I think for Arsenal, they realised that it was not going to work, so they got in a former Arsenal invincible. But that's what you need really to make a difference in the recruitment. Someone with experience who knows what they're doing and who can actually bring something to the table about Fulham and their DNA.
I think I've said this before as well. The man that owns the club and his son, I'm sure, have the best intentions. I don't think there's any, there's no anger like you get at Newcastle or at West Ham, the sort of situations that have arisen with their ownership and the fans. Yeah, what you've got is frustration from our fans that it doesn't have to be like this. If Shahid Khan was my father and he gave me responsibility to make that club work, I would like to think that I would use my intelligence and bring in people, surround myself with people who know what they're doing, not rely on myself to do it just so I can take all the glory. I don't know why you glory by being responsible for hiring the right people. You're still going to get the glory. You're still the head of that organization, if you like. But get people. This is clearly not working. It didn't work last time. It's not working this time. Can't you see you'll be made to look stupid? But I don't know, maybe it's an arrogance. Maybe it just comes from having a very wealthy father, and you were always lauded and told that you're great. And I don't know, maybe he just needs to come down to earth a bit. I don't know what it is, but it's not working.
Yeah. And is it working for this guy? Your manager, Scott Parker, obviously played for you, played for West Ham before. Carlos, this guy is a fantastic young manager. I mean, he brought you up, from obviously the Championship when there was never really, I don't think, any real thoughts from anybody, including myself and even you guys, that you're coming up. I remember the conversations we had weeks before the playoffs, and how you probably fall at the last hurdle or the second to last hurdle. What's your thoughts on Scott Parker? Is this a bridge too far for him?
Just before I talk about Parker, I would like to say, or ask the question, rather, would Tony Khan, in his other businesses, hire for a top job someone who has his footballing experience? I think the answer is obvious. He would not. Yeah. And yet he feels that he can hold down that job and make decisions, probably the most important job within a football club today. Now, following on, you're asking me about Parker. He's been dealt a bad hand because he's been given a poor squad. I don't think our squad was good enough to get promoted, but we did somehow. And that has something to do with Parker. So he knows what he's doing. It's just that he, as I said, the squad isn't good enough. We've gone up. He was probably hoping for better reinforcements, and they haven't arrived. We started the league with the same defense that we had in the Championship, and that showed. A defense that was found wanting very often in the Championship. And then if you forget the defense, because we've talked enough about it, and it's obviously not good enough because we're conceding 2 and 3 goals in every match. Actually, conceding 2 is quite good. If you look at the attack, we've got nothing. For maybe 3 or 4 seasons, we have been surviving the whole season with 1 centre forward. Now, how is that possible? I don't think there's any other club that just has 1 centre forward. Why on earth does the director of football think that we don't need another forward? Because the other attacking players we have are wingers. And let's face it, I don't want to criticize anyone too harshly, but they are not Premier League players. Mm. So not only are they not of the right quality, but also they provide practically no support to Mitrovic, who, by the way, to me, looks like he's a bit overweight. Mm. Now, if he is, then that's inexcusable.
Yeah.
There is no excuse for that. And that would mean there's sloppy training. Now, I don't know if it's just his physique and that his body is developing in that way as he gets older. But surely they could fine-tune him a bit more.
Yeah.
Besides that, if he had the proper support, if he had someone who could give him the right passes, someone else for defenders to mark and be worried about. Because right now, opposing teams only have to worry about Mitrovic, really. Not only because he's the only goal scorer, but he's the only one who gets into goal-scoring positions.
Yeah.
I mean, we do actually have some players who, when I see them coming on, I just hold my head. Because there are some players who would not get on the bench of any other of the 19 teams.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, look, let's go through this. So, first of all, the Mitrovic situation. So, Mitrovic, yes, you said he's may have a bit of timber, and we look at the difference between him and Cavani. This guy hasn't been playing any football, and look at the state of this guy. Come on, he is incredible. One, he showed his videos on Instagram and the rest of it, but oh my God, the guy looked absolutely sensational. His movement, his pace. Obviously, he's a very experienced, top, high-quality, world-class player. But this is a guy who doesn't look like he's ever been away from football. And Mitrovic, obviously, had the same amount of time off as everyone else, which is basically, the time we had, obviously, COVID lockdown. So, why has this happened, do you think? Is it because of Scott Parker, or is it his staff? Or Mitrovic has to take personal responsibility, Vartan?
I think it is. I think he has one of those unfortunate physiques. He's still very young. He's in his early 20s. He's still developing. I know it sounds ridiculous to say. I just think he has one of those unfortunate physiques. He looks heavy. He's not quick, let's be honest. He's no Jamie Vardy. But even the things we should be using to his strengths, we're not, because he's isolated to such an extent. This is a guy who, for his country, scores goals at a very high level. And I don't think we're using him the right way. We're using him in the only way we can, I suppose, but it's not the right way. He's too isolated, as Carlos identified. They double up on him. The service he's getting is almost non-existent. And it's shocking watching him. I think that his head might be dropping somewhat as well. Mine would, if I were him. Love it as he does at Fulham, but things just ain't going well, and I think it's going to mentally affect him, or it is doing, because he's not amongst the goals and he hasn't even really looked that close.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know if it's Parker's doing. Maybe it's just the atmosphere around the club. I think he's just that shape, and he's not particularly quick. They're not his strengths.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's only 6 games in.
Mm-hmm.
We must remember that it's 6 games in. Mitrovic, and nobody's head should be dropping at Fulham. I appreciate, yes, there's some issues there, but it shouldn't be everyone calling time already. You're not 35 games in. We're 6 games in. So, you know, I'm interested to know your thoughts as Fulham supporters, both of you, about Parker, and is he capable of keeping you up, one? And if he isn't, should he stay in the job, or does it need a quick fix? I mean, what's your thoughts, Carlos?
Well, I would also like to say that I like Mitrovic, and I think that we could and should get more out of him. Obviously, as Vartan said, he does well for Serbia, so that's one important thing. Mitrovic is not the problem. Now, Parker, as I said, it's very difficult being in this job at a club that seems to be doing everything wrong. Don't forget, when the Khans bought Fulham, their first achievement was to get us relegated in the very first season. Then we spent, what was it, 5 seasons in the Championship,
Sure.
And then we somehow managed to get up. Also, we didn't just get relegated and spend 4 seasons in the Championship, but we finished something like 20th and 17th.
Yeah.
Now, how can you explain that a club that's come down and had a better squad than most Championship teams, how could we finish that low? And then, okay, football took its natural course and we got promoted because, I would say, with the money we made after 13 years in the Premier League, how could we not put in a challenge to get promoted? Okay, we got promoted through the playoffs. And then we went through one of the most embarrassing seasons ever. Got relegated and scraped into the playoffs again and scraped into the Premier League by winning the playoffs. So the track record isn't great. I would point to what the Jacksonville Jaguars have done since the Khans bought the club. Because, it's not inspiring. If you look at what they've done in a sport that they probably know a bit more about than football, then why the hell would they want to get involved in football? Because only once have they got into the playoffs in all the years that they've been at the club. That was 2012 when they bought into the club. Every other year, they have not made it into the playoffs. Every year, they have more defeats than victories. Okay, so you would probably say, well, they bought the right club in England, didn't they? Because they can continue with their impressive record. Yeah. Now, whether Parker is the man, I like Parker. I think he's a gentleman. I think he's got good footballing ideas. He hasn't obviously got the experience. I wouldn't have a problem with him continuing. Because whoever comes in is going to struggle with what we have. Yeah. But maybe if there was a change in management, I wouldn't get rid of Parker. Because as I said, he does not have that much experience. He's only really started out in management now. He's been in it for a couple of years. So if another more experienced manager came in, I would keep Parker on to groom him and for him to become the manager after the one we signed leaves.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
He has got good ideas, and maybe he just needs a bit more expertise. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe he doesn't. But all I'm saying is that after just a couple of years, it wouldn't do him any harm.
Yeah, well, I like that. And it depends obviously on the guy himself. Would Parker want to drop down and learn under somebody? Hopefully he'd be humble enough to do that. What's your thoughts though, Vartan, though? Because if you think about it, teams have done it time and time again where they panic before the January transfer window. They get rid of the manager, young up and coming, or someone who's just struggling in general, and they panic and they get a quick fix like a Sam Allardyce.
Oh my God, you said those dreaded words.
Yeah. or Tony Pulis. I think Pulis has got a job though. But you get these guys in and they give a quick fix. But long term, obviously these guys are always short term. They're only there for a year or two, and then when you're obviously fed up with them, you get rid of them, and then you find yourself in the doldrums again. Should you keep faith with Parker?
I too, like Carlos, quite like the guy. I do think he's genuine. I think he's honest. He's fairly humble. But if you strengthen the structure around him, and I mean by a very, very, in a very big way, have a director of football, a father figure, if you like.
A former player.
Yeah, indeed.
A former Fulham player.
Yes. Yeah, possibly. One doesn't spring to mind immediately, but a Danny Murphy,
Danny Murphy, yeah.
If he fancied it, for instance, a Brian McBride. I mean, these are names I'm plucking from thin air, but Fulham, like every other club, has had its share of loved, lauded players, heroes, if you like. He needs some help. At this stage, anyone, even a business leader, someone with management experience above him, who can call some shots and let Tony Khan, the son, just take a backseat, let him oversee the operation, but not to dabble in it anymore. Because, like Carlos said, the Jaguars, for instance, are habitual losers.
Yeah,
he presides over that, and in over 8 years. How does that reflect on him? He must go to cocktail parties in Hollywood and shake hands and go, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm the guy that runs the Jacksonville Jaguars." People must take a backward step, go off and get another glass or something. You want to talk to him. You want to associate with success, and he's not. Clearly, he's not. So take a back seat. Bring someone in who can make a difference, more than one person. I'm talking about a structure of not just one person to look after Parker. I like Parker. Okay, the football's frustrating. Maybe he's only working with what he's got. But I'm not in for a quick fix either, but we need some major changes. If it's not him, who's it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, just to give my thoughts on it as well, I 100% back you on that, and I think Parker has to stay. I think there's too much of quick fix trying to get someone in to fix a problem that is underlying. It's almost like a trifle. You think about a trifle, it's got all these layers, and then you got the cherry on top. Everyone's looking at the cherry on top, but actually there's so many layers that have been built up to this point. Now, he got you there with obviously his assistants and stuff up to the Premiership, and you guys obviously said that you weren't ready. You said it before, even the playoffs, that you weren't ready. And, we'll see how it goes. But at the moment, it's come to pass. And I think that you give a young manager a chance. Yes, he needs some experience, and maybe he does need to get someone to help him. But he definitely should stay. Just like across the board, Arteta, Solskjaer, Lampard, all these guys. This is what it's about. It's not about just going, pressing the default button. For me personally, I mean, what if you want to add to that, that's fine. But I personally think it's too easy to go back to the 60-year-olds managers who've been around the block, as opposed to let the next generation take football to a different direction, really, as opposed to just what it is already. So I think he needs time, but in football, like you've already said, it's a fickle business. And the Khans, if you talked about, that we know it's all about business for them. Goodness me, they wanted to buy Wembley Stadium. That says it all for me. I mean, they've got no interest in anything to do with England, realistically, apart from obviously the Fulham Football Club. But to buy the stadium was a purely business. It wasn't because they want to make sure that the stadium sticks to its roots and stuff. They did a lot of smoke and mirrors, but that's my thoughts on it anyway. Anything to add on that before we move on from Scott Parker, Vartan? Carlos, do you want to go say anything?
Well, I would like to say that we definitely need someone to tell the Khans that you need to know something about football if you're going to be in the football business, in the same way that you would need to know about cars if you're in the car business.
Yeah.
Or you need to know about, I don't know, cameras if you're selling cameras. Any business you're in, you need to know about it. At what age did Shahid Khan see his first football? Did he ever hold a football in his hand before he was 50? Probably not. And Tony Khan, I just don't think he knew the game existed, probably. Now, because if he thinks that you can sign players purely on analytics, then it demonstrates that the man is completely ignorant about football. Football is not basketball, it's not baseball, where analytics are so important. There's so much more to football. Now, you could say, well, look at Brentford. I don't agree with Brentford's methods, but at the end of the day, it's football people who are making the decisions based on analytics, but they're making footballing decisions. That is something that Tony Khan cannot do. Now, any professional in any job, if they're given a task that they do not have the expertise on, they must get someone who knows about that business as an advisor. That is the intelligent thing to do. Anything else is just downright stupid.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Anything else to add to that, Vartan?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to carry the can if I was him. I'd want other people to carry the can. Okay, I'm overseeing the project, but I'll bring in 2 or 3 people who should know better than me. And if they fail, I can point to them. Purely from a self-preservation point of view. Why would you do anything different? It's so arrogant.
Yeah, fair enough. I think we're pretty clear about the current situation. Thank you, boys. So I thought we'd just look back at some of the guys who've come up through the playoffs and just see where they're at. So some have stayed off, some haven't. You guys are there. 2020. Villa was the year before. You were the year before. Then Huddersfield Town. Where are they now? Gosh, they had an amazing season and they went down. Hull City, they've gone down to League One, haven't they?
Yeah.
Norwich City bounced back up and down all the time, but they obviously came up and then went down again. They've come close a lot. QPR, how much money did they spend in 2014? Remember that? That was crazy. Palace, they're here. They're still there. They were fighting forever, weren't they, for relegation and just stayed up just by the skin of the teeth, skin of the nose. And but they look like a quality side now. They'll still be bottom half, but they should stay up. West Ham, same scenario. Swansea City, 2011. My God, they've come close again. They were in the playoffs, weren't they? But they couldn't do it. And Blackpool was not there. Blackpool 10 years ago. I remember that. They were amazing and they did great, but they struggled throughout the whole campaign. So there are a few teams in there who have stayed up. So it's not outside of the realms of reality that you guys could stay up, right? What's your thoughts?
Personally, when we got promoted in 2001, I didn't expect to stay up more than 2 or 3 years, even though we had a far more exciting side under Jean Tigana. It wasn't long-lived, but it was wonderful to watch, wonderful to be getting in the sort of players that we could only have dreamt of before. And, in relatively speaking then, Al Fayed had a lot of money and he on the team. It was incredible. We stayed there. I'm still very proud of this record. 13 years. Now, some of those teams that you pointed out, Hull, Blackpool, Norwich, these sort of some yo-yo, some never to be seen again. I would like to see how many of the teams go back 13 years, see who's still in there now, and see. I know the game's changed a lot in the time since we left that division in 2014 or whenever it was, but I'd like to see teams, even Newcastle, Villa, Leeds, all these teams who are sort of showboating right now. Southampton, Burnley, certainly, West Brom. I'd like to see them put together 13 years, and I'm proud of that. I can't see us ever doing it, of course, but I know that was then. This is now, but it was an incredible period of time for us, and we avoided relegation a couple of times, and then came top half a couple of times, and throw in a European final. That's not bad going for a teeny little team. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you did brilliantly, and I remember obviously going that one season coming down. So no, yeah, it was great stuff, really good. So think about Carlos as well. You know, these teams that, like I've said, some of them have stayed at Burnley, have stayed at West Ham, Palace. Yeah, I know a lot of them have gone down. Villa, obviously, but it is definitely possible. We've even seen. Remember the days of when Leicester were looking like they were dead and buried, and they somehow survived. It's definitely possible for you still to step. It is only 6 games in.
Oh yeah, it's possible, but it's improbable because you have to believe that there is improvement on the way.
Yeah.
Now, what signs do we have that anything will get better? I can't see any signs. So, and by January, if we do make a couple of decent signings, also we've been unfortunate because Anderson, the Lyon central defender, arrived, got injured before he played a single minute, and it looks like it's long term as well. Oh, by the way, we signed an injured player as well, Congolo, who is also a left back, by the way. Just one more. Talk about overloading. Yes, he can. In fact, that wasn't a bad signing because he can play centre back and left back. So I guess, and he's good. He is good. Okay. I just hope he plays at some stage. Signing 2 right backs when we had already 2. Mm-hmm. Okay, we sent Christie out on loan. We got Odoi. But anyway, I just think that even a good Fulham would probably be in the lower part of the table, lower half of the table. Because there is a normal state of affairs for clubs which cannot be broken. It can be broken occasionally and very, very briefly, but teams will not normally go back to their normal state. Now, the Premier League is not our natural environment. So just being there is an achievement, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. For any team.
Particularly when you're small and when you haven't done it that often.
Yeah.
Because over the years, if you add up all the years that we've been in the top flight, it's not much, It's not a very high number. It's only just higher than QPR's, and that says it all. So what I would say is that if a good Fulham would more or less struggle because of our DNA, what do you expect to happen if, on top of all of that, on top of our history and everything that we have to, everything that we're burdened with, on top of that, everything we do is wrong. Our preparation is wrong. Our planning is wrong. So there's only one thing that can happen in that condition, and that is we'll go down. We'll go down. I just can't see the situation changing so drastically for us to suddenly start beating teams. I can't see where we're going to get a single point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the truth, Mark. I know you find this hard to believe, but you look at each fixture that comes up. Not once so far this season have I approached the game thinking for a moment that we can win it. Not even the Sheffield United game. That's the way we are conditioned. Now, some will call that a small team mentality. Yeah, fine, if that's what you want to call it. But realistically, okay, Sheffield United. Yeah, come on, we must pick something up there. Of course, we did. Picked up something very small, but we snatched that point from the jaws of victory. Every fixture, Brighton, for God's sake. Why should I be worried about that? I am. Of course I am. Burnley. The chances of us getting anything at Burnley, 0. Big fat
Even
0.
At the best of times, we never get anything out of Burnley.
Never. It's just written in stone. So, what is there to look forward to? What is there to enjoy? I don't want to be a defeatist. Thank God I'm not running the club or responsible for raising morale. But the reality is, I don't look forward to it. I said it before, I'll say it again. It's great getting promoted. I love it. It's fabulous. I hate being there.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. And listen, I'm sure you would enjoy it more if you were actually, obviously, at the ground. It was a great,
Uh,
great.
I think we've been spared that this season. I've got to say, I don't want to witness getting battered every week. What's the fun in that?
Okay.
Of
All
course, I've enjoyed it. They're massive big days, playing Arsenal at home, Manchester United, Liverpool, all the usual. In fact, it's a full house whoever you play in the Premier League, because loads of people turn up, lots of tourists turn up, and I'm grateful for them. But it's not really fun. Give me a game against Forest that you might be able to win, or Barnsley on a wet Wednesday night, and there's a chance we could pick up a point or three. Yeah, I'll take that, because it's competitive. It's a competition, not theatre like the Premier League tends to be. And by theatre, I mean pantomime.
So realistic. Okay, I'll ask both of you this at the same time. So realistically, obviously, Carlos first. What's it going to take to turn things around? Look, the whole title of this whole show is Fulham Football Club already in trouble. Obviously, already in trouble, but can you turn it around? And are you? And another question, twofold: are you going to have a derby-like year, or are you going to do better?
What would it take? It would probably take signing David Copperfield. Either that or somehow exchanging our squad with Liverpool.
Okay.
Neither thing is going to happen. So I only see one end result. You were talking about the teams that got promoted in the playoffs and managed to stay up. If you look at that, you'll see that generally they're big, or at least bigger clubs than us, which doesn't take much. Aston Villa, okay, they struggled to stay up, but they stayed up, and now they're having a good season. We'll see how good it is at the end. We shall see. You can't get ahead of ourselves. But we are talking about a team that's won the league 7 times and won the European Cup.
Yeah.
Now, when we win the toss, we do a lap of honor. So that's the difference. That is the difference, you see. Crystal Palace, you could say, I mean, historically, they're smaller than Fulham. But they seem to have good management at executive level. They're doing things slowly, but properly. And they've got a great manager. They've got a great manager on the bench. I mean, we should know, because he led us to our highest ever finish.
Yeah.
Our highest finish before was in the 60s. Was it 10th we had finished? Under Roy Hodgson, we finished 8th one season and 7th another. That is our best ever finish.
Why did he go again? Just out of interest.
Because Liverpool. No, was it England first or Liverpool?
England, yeah.
I thought it was Liverpool, wasn't it?
It was Liverpool first, wasn't it? Liverpool.
Sorry, Liverpool.
And then he went to England.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I can understand. I don't begrudge him going to Liverpool.
No.
I was a bit upset when I saw him celebrating the goals yesterday against us.
Well,
I thought he might have been a bit more contained.
He's actually a Palace fan. Did you know?
I know. But after his connection with Fulham, I thought he would have been a bit more contained. But anyway, okay. But yes, there you have a team that is doing things well. Palace are what I said would be the case if Fulham was doing things properly, because Palace are going to be lower half of the table, and that will be a good season. That will be a good season, you see, because they are Crystal Palace. It's very rare. I mean, don't forget, the team of the 80s never became the team of the 80s.
No.
Well, they had Sam Allardyce, didn't they? Save them again.
Palace? Did they? I can't remember that. But in any case, the thing is that that would be the best we could hope for if we were doing everything perfectly, like we did under Roy Hodgson, because under Roy, Fulham was completely different. And yes, mid-table was great. We finished mid-table a few times. And like I said, those 2 8th and 7th finishes. And that's great. We can't expect more than that.
No. That's why things like the European final, I'm calling it that because it was a European final, even though it wasn't the European Champions League, it was a European final, one of only two up for grabs, if you don't count the old Intertoto Cup. So, and the achievement, it's been well documented what the achievement meant, what it means to us. I think a lot of people have largely forgotten about it. I'll never forget about it. What a wondrous experience. And that's as good as it can get. How much better can it get, apart from winning the damn thing? How much better can it get? A mid-table finish? We've had an FA Cup semi-final. Wow. You know, but we don't have great expectations, and we're never let down.
Yeah. So thank you, boys.
Can I just add that this season is not a disappointment, and we don't feel let down because we never expected any different. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's painful to watch, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what we expected.
Yeah. And you did say it before. One, you didn't think get through the plans, but when you did get through, you did say quite clearly from the start. And if anybody's interested, you can look at the videos, previous videos. After the exhilaration, obviously the reality sets in. That it would be a struggle. It would be a struggle. I just hope that it's not a derby type of year, but we'll see. Look. Everyone's getting freak results. That's the great thing about the Premiership at the moment. So all hope is not lost. What I'm going to say, though, is, so here we are. Oh, here comes the cat. I can see the whiskers. Oh, dear. So,
black and white, of course.
Yeah. What's the cat's name?
He's black and white, though, man.
Yes, he is. Like Fulham. True Fulham.
So in our defense.
So the kind of final to wrap this up. So thinking about a situation, if let's say you get relegated, hypothetically, you get relegated, do you come back up straight away? Do you think? I mean, personally, I think you would, because I think you're good enough squad to come back up. Or is it going to be? And I know what your personal preference is, but I'm talking about the team and Parker at the helm, hopefully. Are you realistically going to, if you drop down, come back up at the first go? So, Carlos, do you want to go first?
There would be a chance, of course, because of all the money that you make when you get promoted. And a season in the Premier League, yes, any team that goes down should stand a chance. And especially when you've picked up 2 parachute payments for 3 years. We're going to be the richest team in the Championship.
I think it's a cunning plan.
It might be. It might be. So, yeah, why not? Why not? But at the end of the day, as Vartan said, getting promoted is great. Being there is horrible. Because if you don't plan properly, then it's going to be miserable. So if I believed that our planning would change, if I thought that the people making the decisions were going to change as well, then I would be very happy to get back promoted. I mean, we're talking as if we were already relegated, but that's because I believe we will be. But in our current state and with the current people at the top, I just wouldn't see the point.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't see the point.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And anything to add to that, Vartan? I mean, realistically, is there any way of turning it around this season, first of all?
Like you say, we're only 6 games in, but you have to just look at the evidence in front of you. So far, I would say there's been a little improvement in these last 3 performances. They've been more closely run. We haven't been battered. And if things went a little bit differently, if woodwork wasn't in the way, for instance, and stuff, we might have had a bit more in these last 3 games. But the evidence clearly points to some big changes needed, and they're not forthcoming. Okay, we've got 1 or 2 players who still need to be bedded in. It's probably going to take relegation to make us rise up from the flames yet again. And I'm not welcoming it. I'm not looking forward to it. But it is what it is. Small building blocks. I think the first thing we need to do is get more than 11 points. That would be nice, not to have to suffer the shame of having the lowest ever points total. So you know what? The first target is 3 wins. Just get yourself 3 wins, and with one draw already in the bag, I think we can conquer that little record. Now, once you've done that, you can go from strength to strength. Who knows where that will end? But that should be your first target.
Well, I like that. Anything to add to that, Carlos?
No, apart from the fact that we should be proud that we are the most consistent team in the Premier League.
I like that. That's a good one to finish on. Oh dear. Well, it's been a very
just to get my own back on you. Malcolm, Leicester have just scored.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not surprised about that. What was it? Second half.
79 minutes.
Okay.
But this is the only show that can turn into a watch-along just like that. That's versatile.
Hey, I tell you what, Arsenal's defending looked like Fulham.
Oh, really? And it's a pay-per-view, so here anyway. So you got lucky.
Oh, well, I'm watching it here in Spain, so I didn't pay for it. Wouldn't do. I'm watching it here in Spain. Jamie Vardy.
Of
course.
Completely unmarked.
Really?
Completely unmarked in the 6-yard box.
No surprises there. I'm not expecting much from Arsenal this season. A lot of bedding in to do, just like your team, really. So, different type of bedding in, though. We should stay up, hopefully.
You see, Vartan, he wasn't on, but Malcolm was telling me about the expression Spursy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Tottenham.
That.
And
yeah, they really think...
I just laughed at that. I mean, give me Spursy any day of the week.
Oh, yeah. They do have similarities, relatively speaking, but not a patch on.
My God.
Boy, to suffer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure every club feels the same way. Northampton Town fans must...
Oh, of course, yes. I wouldn't argue this with a Northampton fan.
No.
But definitely with a Spurs fan. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, they don't know what pain is.
No, they've won titles. They've won cups. Don't forget, I've still got the 3rd Division runners-up shirt.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, boys. It's been lovely chatting and catching up and talking about Fulham. We'd like to hear your thoughts as well. Thank you for those who've been watching. We appreciate it, and those who will watch who are not live, leave comments. Let us know what your thoughts are about Fulham. Fulham rock bottom at the moment, with Sheffield United quickly behind them. We've talked about all kinds of things. We've talked about manager. We talked about the people in charge of the place, and we talked about just what can really change the situation. We're only 6 games in, still 32 games to go, so a long way to go. Can Fulham
more suffering to come?
Can we see Fulham turn it around? I don't know. We'll see.
I doubt it, but I would like to say, come on, you Whites.
Indeed, that was brilliant. And we just hope that they don't hold the record. 11 points is the record. It's 1 point in the bag. 1 point in the bag.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. Hopefully that things do turn around. Well, thanks.
Malcolm, Vartan would say as well. We love them for what they are. You can't love Fulham or be a Fulham supporter expecting success. You take what comes at you. You take every slap in the face, and you just shrug your shoulders and say, "Well, I love my club."
Right, as you should. I mean, if I wanted success, I'd have gone and watched Brentford.
Oh dear, spoken like true Fulham fans. I really appreciate it. But I'll tell your thoughts on this matter. Don't forget.
Listen, I've got no problem with Brentford. Some of my best friends are Brentford supporters.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. In Spain.
Actually, no, I don't know any.
That's another subject. One day, Mac, we'll talk about that. I've only ever known one Charlton fan. How can that be?
Well, they're in South East London and you're in West London.
But still.
Well, how many Palace fans do you know?
I know a handful. Yeah,
Really?
more than Charlton fans. Yeah. I
Okay.
even got a couple of Millwall fans.
Wow.
Never
There
met,
you go.
apart from one back in the day, a Charlton fan. Yeah, and they used to fill their ground with 70,000 people. You'd think someone would be around.
Well, that's like me at school. I was the only Fulham supporter at school.
I know, yeah, that was a sad situation for you.
Vartan joined you.
Well, yeah, I convinced him a bit later.
I jumped on the success bandwagon late on.
From Man United to Fulham, I'm impressed with that. That's a big jump. It's a huge jump, but there you go. But thank you, boys. Appreciate that. And we'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter. Don't forget to leave comments and don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank